Hey, everybody, welcome to the Tortured Man Mancast, episode 49, Super Trump Day and the End of the Swamp Witch. That is quite the mouthful. Welcome to the new year. Other than football, we're back to what we do when we're not doing football, which is talking about world events, politics, and the things that should matter to you and probably don't, because that's the reason we're in this shitty hole fucking mess, is because too many of you don't pay enough attention and don't really get mad enough to try to force change. We wish you would join us in our outrage so that we can enforce change. That being said, it is Super Tuesday. And even that, no, that's fun because it's always fun to watch pundits, particularly pundits that are opposed to what's going to happen tonight, which is Trump literally laying waste to everyone. And they're going to cry and cry and cry and cry. Maybe Rachel Maddow will literally, not literally. I don't mean that, because we are. This is all comedy, mind you. But hopefully one day she'll put a rope around her neck and just run around her house really fast and trip over something. But and I'm just kidding, everybody. I'm just kidding. I don't want Rachel Maddow to die because it's so much fun to make fun of her. But something more important happened in this Super Tuesday, because we already know what all the results are going to be here. What I did not expect, and my brother Chad and I have had these discussions, and we haven't talked politics in a long time. And one of the things that I have been discussing with not just Chad, but many others, including my daughter, is that not only would Trump, in the Colorado case, would he win, but I thought the best that they might do is 6-3. That was it. Because I never figured that the super progressive liberal judges, particular Sotomayor, was ever going to decide anything other than pure political response to it. But it was 9-0. What the Supreme Court said, including 3 extremely progressive judges, all agreed with far more conservative judges, is that what the Biden administration is doing and what individual states are doing by proxy through the Biden administration is so reprehensibly disgusting that we have to be unanimously 9-0 to send a message that this can't ever happen. And I'm glad they did. So to the Supreme Court, and especially those progressive liberals, I applaud you for doing the right thing. It doesn't happen often in Washington anymore, but yesterday it did. And I'll pass it to you, Chad.
Yeah, so I was with you, leading up to the ruling 6-3, figured that's probably going to be the way it falls, maybe 7, just because it's such a common sense ruling. And then I heard some of the oral arguments last week, and I heard even the progressive judges really pushing back and like what you're saying is crazy, and I was like, oh dude, this is going to be a slam dunk 9. And sure enough, it was. And, finally a little bit of common sense. I don't hold out the hope for them to continue doing that. I think that unfortunately these judges they're wrapped up in what the whole society's wrapped up in these days, mob mentality. And I think they're deathly afraid of, if they push too hard and they rule too many times in a way that will upset the crazy ass left. I think they're worried that they've had death threats left and right, but they've had literal people showing up at their homes, Kavanaugh and the likes. So, I think there's a little bit of actual pressure on them to not push too hard. And I'm happy that this ruling went the way it did, and it went very common sense. It absolutely should have been this way. And people who argue are to the contrary are just asinine. That said, they've got a bunch of other shit to rule on coming up soon. And I'm really anxious to find out what the ruling is on the presidential immunity clause. That that to me is going to be very interesting because it has implications that are wild. Like, it's people saying that it's crazy that they would actually adjudicate it. Wow, why would they even? How would they even think about giving the president immunity? And it's like, well, because there's actually a clause in there we've never had a case about it. We've never actually adjudicated it. Maybe we should actually answer the question for once, right?
To me, even on that end, now I'm just talking strictly from the position of what the Constitution says. The president absolutely can be held accountable, but first he has to be held accountable by the Congress. And then after that, the gloves come off. If you're held accountable through impeachment by the Congress, say for insurrection, then you can be federally tried and hung, firing squad, put in prison for the rest of your life, whatever the case may be, turned over to the Hague for war crimes against the rest of the world. But there's already a procedure there. I find what I find interesting, particularly when it comes into regard to the claim of insurrection, since he's never even been so much as charged with it. How can you find anybody guilty of something they've never even been charged with? So if we're talking about, if we're going to extend that out, that's one part of it, and then we're going to go about the top secret documents. As president, it is pretty clear that a president can declassify whatever he wants to. But the left has no ground to stand on here in a court of law. What argument are they going to make? That Joe Biden, we've determined through the DOJ, literally broke every one of these laws and should be in prison right now, but he's not competent enough to stand trial, but he's competent enough to be president at the exact same time. But we're not going to charge him, but we're going to charge Trump. What exactly precedents are they going to use to show that this should even happen? What we're talking about here should be a 9-0 as well. I don't think it will be, but he's going to prevail. Even if Edwards sides with the libs, it's still 5-4.
Roberts.
Yeah, Roberts, that's what I meant.
I got you. You mean on the immunity clause, or is that what you mean overall? So if in regards to the immunity clause, whether or not the president has immunity for the things he does while he's in office, blah, 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 if he can even be tried for anything.
An impeachment process is supposed to take place first. That's a guilty 100%. On the impeachment process, of which they've never done.
That's 100% true.
So to me, the Supreme Court could simply digress and go, until you have an actual impeachment and a case to bring in front of us to decide how we would adjudicate it from there. But now we're just talking about, fairies in the air we're trying to catch that don't add up to anything.
Yeah, there's virtually nothing they can do.
What case are they bringing? There's no precedence for anything they're trying to do here.
Anything he did while he was in office. What they could technically get him for is in quote unquote insurrection, after the fact, or just something, after he was out of office, technically. So that's something. But here's what I think. I think that the SCOTUS actually might kick the can down the road on this one and just go ahead and let the election shake out. They had to get this one in time. Let the election shake out, and then maybe they won't even have to fuck with it, right?
Well, true,
it'll just be squashed.
Because there is also a part of federal rule of law that a case like this can't even be brought 60 days before an election because it will impede the election. So it's by federal law, it's not even allowed to happen. So they don't have until then. They have until September the 1st to make this happen. And since they just brought it, and given where we are, this will be the most condensed, fastest through the Supreme Court ruling in the history of the world. I think the Supreme Court's going to kick it to their next session. They're not going to rule on it. Yep. And then if Trump wins, they'll
start the process.
Right. Well, here's the irony, Chad. If Trump wins, they won't have to do anything. And if Trump loses, they won't have to do anything because the left won't care anymore. They're doing this as obstruction. They're not doing this because they think a law was broken.
Yeah. It's almost like the left cares if, I don't know, the person currently in power in a country decides to take his opposition leader off of the ballot and then imprison him so that he can't run against him and hope that he dies while he's incarcerated.
Right.
Sound familiar? Russia, right? All the left, this darling that, Putin probably did have off. He sent him to fucking Siberia, for crying out loud. So who the fuck knows? But my point is, the same shit. He filed court cases to get him off the ballot. Then he did some shit, court cases to get him incarcerated. And then what happened there. It sounds exactly what they're trying to do to Donald Trump here, does it not? I think it's
absolutely.
also yeah.
I think the irony with this whole thing here is the way that political opposition is treated in Russia is currently vastly superior to the way we do it in America right now, right? I mean, this has become so absurd that 3 ridiculously progressive liberal judges on the SCOTUS said, no, this is actually crazy. And I'm as someone who is disheartened, it's the nicest word I can use, as to where we have been heading for a very long time. Even on the best day, I never thought we would get a 9-0. You know how rare 9-0 is by the Supreme Court? Has it ever happened? I mean, it's just so damn rare.
Wow, but it's a resounding answer.
Right. I mean, even in today's Supreme Court, and when I mean today, I mean modern history, say since 1950. Anything 6-3 is considered an ass whooping in the Supreme Court over the last 70 years, right? 9-0. That's literally a football game where the Kansas City Chiefs are playing the Cleveland Browns and the Kansas City Chiefs win 108-0. That's right. How bad an ass whooping that is. I mean, it's the Lakers playing the Celtics and the Celtics win 250-30. It's so out there. It is an MMA heavyweight champion of the world fighting an 8-year-old in an elementary gymnasium. Ass whooping.
And what's that is it should have just been that obvious all along. Everybody should have known this is what it was going to be. And so therefore it shouldn't have been treated with any sort of, legitimacy from the jump. They shouldn't have had to bother. We shouldn't have had to waste all this money and time adjudicating this so far. I mean, multiple levels.
Have you seen all the law experts from CNN, MSNBC, ABC, NBC, CBS, all of them everywhere? They were all convinced that this was that the Colorado Superior Court and the lawsuit that was brought originally was one of the most brilliant fucking lawsuits in the history of the world. And they were all pointing out how they would win. And then all of them, the second it was released, all go on television and go, we all expected this to happen. They didn't. None of you expected this to happen, you lying assholes. Come on, man. Expect any of this. As a matter of fact, you're all heartbroken. I would imagine there were more drunk liberal Democrats last night than at any time in American history. And that includes when they lost to the Union.
Yeah, well, I think they're still holding out hope. They'll get him on something,
Well, man, that is their rally cry, isn't it? We should get T-shirts made up. We'll get him on something.
Or at least they'll break him.
Time. So sad to watch them. It's pathetic at this point. But for people who are generally principled people, regardless of where they are in the scale of left to right, I think it's becoming clearer and clearer that in a society where popularity is the only thing that matter, and you can have your own personal truth and facts be damned, it's starting to actually look like that they've gone too far, that there's a line where people are finally starting to push back and go, this is wrong. And I'm actually, just the things that I'm watching happening from man on the street kind of interviews to the way things are being presented from organizationally from throughout the country, from smaller governments on up, is that people are just done. They've overplayed their hand. The whole the transgender in elementary schools, books that are pornographic and completely inappropriate for school age children, to mutilating our children, to trying to make pedophilia normalized by renaming it minor attracted people. The next will be rape. Rape will be rationalized and it'll be okay. It'll be renamed something like, rape affected persons, right? It'll be something, because what they're doing, and this is a complete Marxist thing, as you well know. You're very studied on it. So I'm preaching to our people, not to you, the choir. But finally, it looks like this kind of depravity, like Marxism, this is the standard typical way that Marxism works. You have to destroy your society so that you can remake it. So how do you destroy it? By making the most depraved things in your society normalized, and then make you the bad person for pointing out that it's probably not a good idea for 50-year-old men to identify as 15-year-old girls and be able to use their locker rooms, for instance.
It's called Cloward and Piven. Yeah, that's one of the angles. One of the other angles is mass migration. Just flood a country with a bunch of illegals like they're currently doing right now. And speaking of that,
dissolution of marriage, removing God from society, normalizing all kinds of sexual perversion. It's insane.
Attacking a country's financial, structure by flooding the, welfare and social safety nets, and just completely bogging all that shit down. But speaking of the border, that used to supposedly was never a crisis, and then magically, but it is a crisis, and we wrote a bill because it's a crisis. But the evil Republicans, they won't sign the bill to end the crisis, but it's not really a crisis. It's okay.
Right.
So speaking of that, just broke today, I believe it was, earlier this morning. Joe Biden has secretly flown 320,000 illegal immigrants from Latin American airports on United States Airlines, flown them in from other countries so that it didn't look so bad at the border. Just flew them right the fuck in the cover of darkness. We knew that they were like flying them from the border. We didn't know they were flying them from other countries, right? Just dropping them right here in America, just to try to do it quietly.
All right. Well, they want the votes. That's the whole point.
So 100%. But my question is, if Mayorkas can be impeached for this, why is Biden not being impeached?
Right.
This is treason, dude.
But it's funny you bring up Mayorkas. He is the most detestable person in my lifetime. I mean, he's worse to me than Hillary Clinton. This is the biggest ass kissing yes man in the history of the United States. That dude is Joseph Goebbels. He will do whatever he is told, including cutting the throat of his own wife, if it would politically score him points. He is the most detestable, disgusting person I have ever seen in Washington. And that is a mouthful, considering the detestable people that are currently in Washington. I hate this guy. How has he not been impeached? I don't get it. So here's a question that I have that I really wish somebody could answer. Why, when the Congress is controlled by the left, that literally they could file something today and it starts tomorrow, but when the Republicans have control, whatever they say they're going to do takes 17,000 years? I don't understand.
You got to have the presidency. If you don't have the enforcement mechanism.
But Trump did his first 2 years and nothing happened. Nothing.
That's why they immediately went to impeachment. That's why they immediately bogged him down in that shit so that he couldn't do anything else. And it was a fucking brilliant idea because it worked. They got gain of function back through. They got all their shit. They stopped the wall. They
But my,
fucking did
but my
everything
point
they
is,
wanted.
but the left is not inept at making ridiculous shit happen. Look, we just had a Supreme Court case that if the shoe was on the other foot, it would take the Republicans until the year 1 million after death to actually get it filed. I don't understand. Jim Jordan came in this year for the new class and had control and talked all kinds of shit. And except for one subpoena, they have done nothing. What? Damn. They're not even trying. And they have the votes. Like, they can't stop them. Mayorkas could have been impeached right from the beginning. They finally got an impeachment through right at the time where they'll never do the impeachment. And if Biden's gone, he's gone. So it doesn't matter anyway.
But also, if Biden just puts another yes man back in there that's going to do the same shit. See, my point is, like, we didn't really fucking win anything because the Republicans took a slim majority in the fucking House. Like,
we didn't win anything because Republicans did anything at all because we're not Republicans.
Right.
We're Democrats.
And if we were to win, if we were to win anything by the Republicans, A, they would have to fucking have our intentions in mind, but B, they would actually have to have the presidency. And if they had an actual president, like a typical politician president, they would never get any of that shit done anyway, because the system is designed to get things done. It's designed to keep things a problem. Donald Trump, I think, isn't one of these people. And love him or hate him, I'm not a big fan, but he isn't a fucking typical politician. And I think he really wants to do some good shit so that he can be patted on the back and go down in history as doing some good shit. And they don't want that. It's like, no, you're not supposed to fix any of this. That's not how this works.
And it's not even, I think sadly what most people in this country don't understand, this isn't even, I mean, this is beyond the veil of politics. The world players that actually control what's really going on, they're the ones who don't want Trump. Right. Because Trump wants America 100%. First. Trump doesn't want to be part of the WHO, and Trump doesn't want to be part of any of the collective alphabet soups that everybody's supposed to be in. And the United States government pay for 50 to 75% of all these organizations like NATO who don't ever get anything accomplished. That's Trump is like, no. And then, of course, he went to the World Economic Forum and said, "Mug everybody, we're going to fix America first and screw your world dollar. We're not ever getting anywhere near that." And they lost their ever-loving fucking minds.
So Dr. Phil was on The View recently, and he was talking to those idiots about this whole issue with the border. And he says that he specifically talked to high-level officials on the Border Patrol who have said that, you know, it's way crazier than anybody thinks, that there's just people, kids, he's like, kids show up, all kinds of kids show up every day, no documentation whatsoever, completely unaccompanied, and they'll just have a phone number written on their arm. And you're just supposed to call that phone number and verify that there's somebody waiting for them. And then that person, and then they just let them go. And that person's supposed to collect them. And he says, how can you be sure that these aren't like child traffickers that are bringing them and taking them? And the guy goes, "Oh, we're sure. We're sure that's happening." And he's like,
that's what almost all of them are doing.
So, like, this is government facilitated child trafficking, bro. This is fucking disgusting. And obviously that's one of the more dark parts of it. I think that, like you said, and Elon's been saying, all of us have been saying, the general idea is to get a bunch of new voters. You know, this is why voter ID is racist, right? Because you can't be having voter ID because we need a bunch of fucking illegal people voting. I don't know if you heard recently in San Francisco, but in San Francisco, they changed a local ordinance so that people who weren't natural born citizens of the United States could serve on city councils and so forth, such as the election board.
Right.
There's now a Chinese national serving on the election board
In San
and no,
Francisco.
she's not going to work to try to get illegals to fucking vote now, is she?
I wonder if
And
she
I
knows
think
Mitch
one of the
McConnell.
crazier, yeah, right, or Eric Swalwell. And one of the craziest things is when Eric Weinstein was down in the Darien province, the Darien Gap down in um, Panama. The Pan American Highway goes all the way up here, all the way Alaska, all the way down to Panama, and then all of a sudden it hits the 60-mile gap in Darien because it's just like most dense jungle on the planet. And there's a bunch of like stuff that's being preserved there. We don't want it fucked with, so on and so forth. There's tribes that live there. And there's a ton of people that go through South America, come up through there, and that's how they work their way up into Mexico and then the United States. So there's encampments of people from all over the world there, he said. And he said, all of these encampments, you can walk up to them and like, if you can get a translator, you can talk to them. Most of them will tell you where they're coming from, and they'll like tell you that they're excited to get to America for a better way and this and that and the other. He said, but then there's this one encampment that's full of Chinese males, military aged, and they are hostile. They don't want to talk to you at all. They don't want shit to do with you. Go the fuck away. And it's like, they obviously have something else in mind. He's like, I'm not sure exactly what it is, but I think it's obviously, at the very least, it's trafficking fentanyl. But I think it probably something more sinister is China's, man, they might be ready to pull the plug on some shit, dude. And they might not be the only ones. Like Venezuela, they have like a 20-year low in gang activity now because where do you think the gangs have come?
Yeah, they sent him here. Do you remember? You would have been very young. I was a teenager.
Cuba?
Yeah. That the Cubans refugee crisis that hit America. And what did Fidel Castro do? He opened up his prisons for the most vile, disgusting, violent felons that they had, put them on boats and sent them straight to America. And what did America do? Absorbed 85% of them.
Miami got rough too, man.
Not only all of South Florida got crazy. And then, of course, the massive cocaine explosion that happened because the CIA taking advantage of the connections that all these people had down through South America. And then, of course, the crack epidemic started after that. And then, of course, we had Biden make rules and laws that put black people in jail for fucking 10 times the amount of time that a white person would go to jail. Crack was treated as a different thing than cocaine, even though it was the same thing. Just ridiculous. And that all spawned out. I mean, when this goes back, go back to Prohibition. We literally killed an estimated 30 to 50,000 American citizens by poisoning liquor and putting it out into the populace to find out where most of the liquor was actually being trafficked to. It's insanity. Our government hates us. I've been saying that for decades. They hate you. They don't care if you live. They don't care if you die. They don't care about you at all. The only time the government ever lends a finger or a hand towards you is when they want more tax money from you. And if you don't give them what they want, they send the IRS after you. And if you don't give it to them, then they'll either gun you down in your own fucking home or send you to prison for the rest of your life. Period.
He ain't lying. It's fucking
I mean,
true.
I don't understand how anybody is still clueless about how fucking America actually works. We are the most despotic, despicable, evil country on earth. Period. America is horrible as a government. What we have done around the world is just biblically fucking horrible. I love America and I love the people in America, but I hate this fucking government. And until people get that through their head, there will be no change. Our government's the bad guy.
True story.
And one guy out there, and all this political fucking malfeasance that's going on, that is at least half-assedly trying to do anything correct, is Donald Trump himself. And he's the most vilified person in America for doing so. Fucking gross.
Yeah, they're stealing they're not just stealing our money, man. They're stealing our future. They're stealing our kids' future, stealing your grandkids' future. They're
They've stolen our families. They've stolen. They've stolen our communities. They've stolen our moral reality. They've stolen everything, and they still want more. If we gave them 100% of our money and went full on communist, they'd still want more.
Let me just a little bit lighter note. Let's lighten it up for a minute. This is about theft. It's a big time theft. Huge, 86 million or some shit. Like,
not to interrupt you.
Massive.
I'm going to leave screen. I'll be listening. I have to untangle my dog.
Fair enough. But there's a massive amount, huge sum of money that's been stolen. 86 million, I believe it is, dollars has been stolen by one Russell Wilson. And he is going to be parting ways with the Denver Broncos, who will still be on the hook for not just the largest sum of dead cap money of all time, but larger than the top two previously combined at $86 million. This mofo is still in money. He don't even have to play. He can sit on the couch the next 2 years, and he is making bank. However, some team will probably be smart, give him the league minimum, veteran minimum, and let him come in and do something. I don't know if Wilson's going to do that or not, though. I don't know if his ego will let him do that. We'll see. Because he has something to prove.
He could do $85 million and do nothing for 2 years.
I know, but will he do that? Will he sit it out?
No. But his money's guaranteed. So if he signs a contract with another team, say making $35 million a year, that's $70 million over the next two, plus that 85. That's $155 million to play quarterback.
I don't think so. No, it's the Denver Broncos are on the hook for whatever the other team gives him, plus the remainder. So if some other team wants to give him $20 million, Denver still has to they have to pay that and make up.
The $85 million is guaranteed money to him, regardless of any other contract he signs.
It's not how I understand that, but it's broken up over 2 years.
Right.
So this year it's like $39 million, right?
Yeah. And the next year is $50 million.
Right. So this year, say the Pittsburgh Steelers could offer him $20 million. Denver is going to pick that up, plus write him a check for another $19 million. That's apparently Mike Florio explained it this way today, and that's apparently how that works. I didn't understand it that way. He was talking on Pat McAfee about it, and apparently Denver's on the hook for all of it, unless a team wants to pay him above and beyond that, and then they'll, of course, which is asinine.
Well, nobody's going to do
that. Anyhow, it's wild, man. I can't believe what a fucking they gave up a first and a second and a fifth, and then last year, and then now they're giving up another first and another second for this guy and all this dead cap money. Insanity, dude. But here's the thing. Somebody will give him league minimum, but I don't know. Why would you give him any more than that? I don't know.
Well, his money's not. I'm looking it up right now. I just that's not the way that I understood how it works. So it says Broncos can prevent $37 million of Wilson's 2025 salary from becoming guaranteed by release. So they dropped $37 million more dollars guaranteed, but he is guaranteed. So their dead cap space is $85 million just this year alone on this contract. And the cap hit is $35,400,000. And that's what they are guaranteed to pay him regardless of any other contract. In 2025, the dead cap is an additional $49,600,000, and they are on the cap hit side to pay him $55,400,000.
That doesn't tell us anything about the obligation of the other team. The way it was explained was the obligation of the other team. He's guaranteed $39 million or whatever it is, whatever the other team wants to give him. The Broncos they have to make it up.
You're right. That is correct. It says right here, it now appears through some of Wilson's, group of people, that he is keen on taking the league minimum for 24 and 25 to force Denver to pay him in full.
Right. So
can you imagine Russell Wilson going to the Atlanta Falcons and paying for the league minimum $850,000 so that they're guaranteed to pay their $34,500,000 to him?
So that's just it. Like, he can stick it to him for every penny. The other question was, though, will his ego let him do that? Yeah, revenge feels good, but does he want that other team to have some more skin in the game? Because they're a team that pays fucking $2 million. They're not obligated to you for shit, and they'll bench you in a heartbeat.
But he could earn his way back into the league and get his name back. Let's say he goes to Atlanta, and his skill set fits Atlanta's offense very well. And Atlanta's not actually a half bad team; they just have no quarterback. And then in the draft, they pick up another wide receiver or so, so they can actually make waves. They're not going to Super Bowl, but make waves. Why not give him the league minimum? If you throw for over fucking 4,000 yards, you get another $5 million. Throw more than 30 touchdown passes, another $5 million. Let him earn his way back in. He's not going to make he's not going to come to $34,500,000, but he can still earn his way back up. I don't have a problem with it. Ego-wise, I think, and you're talking to somebody with a big ego, myself, so I get it. But you also have to be honest about things too. Russell can't look at the last 2 years and look himself in the mirror and not go, I kind of shit the bed.
True.
So you have to kind of check yourself a little bit and go, Atlanta could use him. I don't think Pittsburgh will, and here's why. I think Pittsburgh's going to go after Justin Fields if they're smart. Nothing against Kenny Pickett. Justin Fields is better.
Well, I would rather them go after Fields than Russell Wilson.
I also,
but Russell Wilson,
according to your boy Pat McAfee, Russell Wilson's going to the Minnesota Vikings.
I know I heard some of that. They were back and forth on that. I hear
he has no inside information and nothing to back up what he's saying. He just feels like that's what's going to happen. But here's the deal: Russell Wilson's skill set fits that system very well, and it looks like. But if it was me, when I heard him say that, I kind of laughed because I'm like, Kirk Cousins is actually younger than Russell Wilson. He's already a better quarterback. Why would you let Kirk go to bring in Russell Wilson? But I'm thinking now it's because they're going to try to make a deal where they don't really have to pay him that much fucking money.
Well, that's just it. They'll get him on the cheap, and they'll try to coach up another guy. But for me, yeah, if you're trying to make a shot, if you're trying to make a run in the playoffs, you're better off sticking with Cousins, even though he's a lot more money. They aren't they a very timing heavy offense? Like, it's all very timing oriented. That's not really Wilson's game.
Well, Kirk, it's a read and react offense.
That's fair.
Kirk Cousins is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL and has been his entire career at reading defenses. He can check down extraordinarily quickly and then make the throw. Do they sometimes run what would be considered a much altered version of a West Coast offense where you're throwing to a spot on the field and it's entirely up to the receiver to make sure he's at that spot? They do that from time to time as well, but that's mixed in for most teams. Wilson did that with Seattle a lot. Wilson's problem is once he's in free space, he doesn't make as good of decisions as other guys who get into free space, unless those guys are exactly where he expects them to be. But Kirk has trained that offensive line to be disciplined. Kirk is the only NFL quarterback, to my knowledge, that Kirk Cousins is faster than is Dan Marino, and that's it. So he's not running around. he's a pocket passer, and so I think that Wilson would fit into that scenario. But at the end of the day, if my choice, here's the deal. Long story short, if Minnesota cuts ties with Kirk Cousins and then can get Denver to basically play a majority of the salary for Russell, they get a quarterback who is a Super Bowl champion, who can still be resurrected for a couple of years, and oh, by the way, leaves them tens of millions of dollars to attract other players in that can help the football team immediately. Kurt's coming with a price tag of $35 million, period. And they could probably get Wilson for chump change. That's the big difference. And if Kirk goes, then Atlanta would be a really smart spot for him to land.
Amen. And if Wilson's smart, he will take that minimum, and he will let them spend that money on weapons and make a good team.
And then, and he can work with them, and he can talk to them, and he can have some input with them. And then, if he can get a backloaded contract all based on incentives, and if he reaches benchmarks like 3,500 plus passing yards, 30 touchdowns, less than 12 interceptions, your rating for the year is over 90, that kind of stuff, and add millions of dollars into that contract, all based on incentives. And then if he can back himself up and put up a good year and take a team that's already pretty much playoff caliber back to the playoffs, because they didn't have Kirk all last year, so they fell apart, he resurrects his career completely. Russell Wilson to me, is one of the first quarterbacks in the new version of the NFL starting from 2010 where the quarterbacks and gaudy numbers don't mean anything anymore. If you look at the numbers of what guys who I would never consider are going to go to the NFL Hall of Fame and are thrown for over 45,000 yards in their career, Russell Wilson's one of those guys. Other than the Super Bowl and a handful of Pro Bowl appearances, how is Russell Wilson any better a quarterback than Kirk Cousins or Joe Flacco?
It's fair.
So why does he deserve the NFL Hall of Fame? Is anybody saying Kirk Cousins deserves to go to the NFL Hall of Fame? Kirk Cousins has better numbers through his career than Wilson does. But nobody's saying that Kirk Cousins is going to the Hall of Fame when he retires. So winning the Super Bowl alone shouldn't be enough, because if that's the case, then Brad Johnson from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in 2001 deserves to be in the goddamn Hall of Fame.
Agreed.
That's not how it works.
Amen, sir. So last but not least, unless you have something else to follow up after this, but the part of this title was Super Trump Day because it's Super Tuesday, and Trump is absolutely just waxing Nikki Haley because she's really the last one who really matters at this point. Matters in air quotes. The other half is and the end of the swamp witch, because the only primary that Nikki Haley won was Washington, D.C., a.k.a. the swamp, and the place where it's 95% Democrat anyway, and the 5% who are Republicans are just uniparty warmongers who are absolutely her audience. That's her fam. So that's it. She's the swamp witch, and ding dong, the witch is dead because she has canceled all future events, will not be speaking this evening, and appears to be dropping out of the race.
Well, it's good for everybody, because I can't think of a single person who's less qualified to be president in the United States than Nikki Haley. She is everything that's wrong with Washington rolled up into one despicable human being. Nikki Haley sold her soul to the swamp machine, and particularly she sold Americans' children's lives for money through the military industrial complex. And she's loathsome and despicable. And there is I wouldn't walk across the street to spit on that bitch's shoes. She's gross, and I wouldn't even want to be in a room with her.
Yeah, she's no better than Kamala or any of them.
They're all the same.
So,
They're all the same.
amen.
They all talk big. They all talk shit. They all sell out. There's so very few that are in Washington now that have not. And then even the ones sometimes that you think have not, you find out that they did. I mean, for me on the Republican side of this division line, Jim Jordan proved himself to be the biggest lion ass piece of shit in Washington, just like I expected him to do. Just like Trey Gowdy before him. Talk. Oh, hey, buddy, we're going to take all your gazillions of dollars away from you. Okay, so I won't push that hard. Eat shit, Jim Jordan, you lying piece of shit.
Well, I mean, he'll probably be like Gowdy. He'll probably be on Fox before you know it. He'll have his own show, and
they'll be paying him $15 million a year to do it. And then
welcome to the Jordan Report.
He'll be a lobbyist, bureaucrat, and on Fox News all at the same time, earning $100 million a year, buying stock in Boeing. So yeah, I mean, the more things change, the more things stay the same. I'm glad to see something happen that seems positive, but at the end of the day, this is what's happened in America, and this happened a very long time ago. The American class was sold by our politicians, our families, our family members, our friends. We've all been sold. So riddle me this. For a country that can just literally, so we are one of the top 10 highest tax countries on earth, right? The land of freedom and liberty. But we're the only country that can print as much money as we want without any ramifications. So why do we need tax money exactly?
Well, there's ramifications.
For control.
Yeah.
It's to control you. It's to keep you poor. It's to keep you middle class. It's to keep you from not being able to ascend to the elite level. That's the whole point of it. For anybody who is a Democrat, who is listening to this, who remains a Democrat, or anybody that is a Republican, who remains a Republican through everything that we've seen over the last 15, 20 years, go fuck yourself. Because you're the problem.
Well, they always have a way to pinch you too. If is with the tax code the way it is, if they ever want to get you, if they ever need to just shut you up, all they got to do is pull an audit. They'll figure out a way to hem you up. Show me the man, show you crime.
The reason you need 70,000 pages of tax law is to make whoever you want innocent, innocent, and whoever you want guilty, guilty.
Ooh, another little tidbit I heard recently. Elon Musk announced on X that his AI chatbot Grok, which is the less woke chatbot, apparently that's
he's
what
also
he's trying to go for.
He's also Gronk's AI brother.
Right. So he's actually having Grok programmed to be able to speed read all of the up and coming congressional and Senate bills so that it can put it in nice little abbreviated tidbits for the common consumer so that it can be read before it's voted on so that they won't have any excuse anymore. That's fucking genius, dude. I love it.
It's double down because
hell yeah.
Now people see, that's something to me that a Russell Brand or a Joe Rogan or a Tucker Carlson will jump all over and will explain or allow it to explain to you in very everyday terms exactly what that whole bill is about and exactly why it's the worst thing that ever happened to you. And
it'll put it in bullet point.
But the other side of that is that now the average person in America will also know that every senator and every congressman that's reading it also has it broken down that quickly for them as well. And they know too. Yep.
You can't feign like you didn't see it because it's all been bulleted. And then if you don't think that it's true, you can highlight it. You can go into it and you can actually see if it says what's being bulleted, what's being in the consumable bit.
Well, I do want to say,
dude, should be
it
fun.
does concern me Because the most honest, above board politician, maybe in American history, Nancy Pelosi, she was very honest and said the only way that you can know what's in a bill is to pass it and then find out what's in it. And everything that Musk wants to do goes against that very wise advice. So I'm going to have to go with Nancy on this one. I think Elon Musk is just trying to create trouble, Chad. I think that's what he's after. Just trouble.
You started investing in the same stuff she's investing in, haven't you?
Yes, I do. I think that Nancy Pelosi, by the way, all her investments have been 100% above board.
Yeah, no conflicts of interest.
So, you know the guy who wrote the book about her? This is the one thing that nobody ever talks about. He wrote that book about all the malfeasance between her and her husband. But what nobody ever talks about on any news station when they interview him is that he has a chapter in that book after he figured out what was going on, that he started investing in everything that they did and he became wealthy because he knew that they had insider information. So whatever they did, he did. And it worked every time.
Oh, there was a whole Twitter page of these two young guys who that's what they were doing. They were just telling everybody what the Pelosi's were investing in, and they were investing themselves, and they'd be like, look how much money we made. Right. And everybody else would be like, great tips. Look how much money I made.
Do you know why those guys got rid of their YouTube channel? Because they made so much fucking money doing what the Pelosi's were doing. They didn't need to do that anymore.
They actually got shut down. I think they might be back on Twitter now, but they got shut down.
When Nancy Pelosi was first elected in 1624, I mean, Nancy Pelosi's been there for 40 years. So we're going back to 1984, 85, 86, whenever she was first elected. They weren't even millionaires yet. And now their net wealth is over $100 million when that woman has never made more than $174,000 in a single year ever. And her husband doesn't work.
Tricky. Oh, he's a trader.
Right. Insider information makes everybody a good trader. It just really does.
It's a solid trader.
If you know exactly what's going to happen tomorrow before tomorrow happens, you're going to make bank. And this is why I don't trust the stock market. I just don't. Because this is what I know. I'm no spring chicken here. So 2008, I was still very coming up a middle-aged adult in 2008. But what 2008 actually proved was we had a government that actually looked us all in the eye and said, you know, these people who created this problem and it's going to make our country lose trillions of dollars, they're too special and too awesome and too needful by this country for us to let them fail. However, since this was all a mortgage bubble, we're going to have over 10 million middle-class people lose their homes forever to make sure that Fannie Mae and all these other people never fail. Thanks, U.S. government.
Yeah, I think it was about 4 years later or something like that. Timothy Geithner was interviewed and, head of the IRS. And they were asking him, hey, there was a big study that was done and like 90% of the audits were on people like making, less than 120,000 a year. And it's like, we just had this fucking whole crisis, all these crazy schemes, like sank the entire economy 4 years ago. Like nobody was ever arrested or put in prison for any of that.
No.
So why are we going
for them?
So why are we going after? Yes. So why are we going after all these other people? These people making chump change compared to these billionaires and shit like that. And he was like, "Well, because the people who don't have a lot of money don't fight back."
Right. Absolutely, 100%.
They're easy targets.
I mean, I'll look straight into this camera right now, and I'll tell everybody listening, I have been in awkward positions in our judicial system. I am by no stretch of the imagination do I have real money, but there have been times in my life where I banked money and I could buy my way out of trouble and did. because you can when you have the funds to do it. There is no justice in America except for can you pay or can you not? And if you can pay, you'll run into no trouble. That's a fact.
Unless you're of the wrong political persuasion, then you might be able to pay for a while, but they'll try to exhaust you as much as they can.
What you do then is you pretend you're on their side and act like you always were. That's the part that hits your jaw. Now, this is what I find ironic along this line. And I'm not talking about I could have done anything about, the housing crisis and anything like that. I'm just saying that if you're in trouble in a lawsuit that has no merit, or you have maybe some other legal trouble based on properties or misdemeanor crimes or whatever you may be into, what I was into is nobody's business but my own. But my point is, because I had the funds, I could get a favorable outcome. And so can anybody with those funds. Now, what we're talking about in the bigger picture here is that if I had every dollar I ever spent, ever earned, ever in a pile right here, right now, it is not 1/10 of 1/10 of 1/10 of the amount of money that it takes to be able to run a SNL and lose billions of dollars and then be bought out and saved and then given a golden parachute of a couple $100 million. That's power.
But even then, if they want to try to crush you, they can. Like literally a former president and the front runner to win again.
Yes.
They're doing their damnedest. And if he doesn't get fucking fumbled here, if he doesn't get, a roadblock, I'll be surprised if he gets across the finish line. And think about this. Look what they're doing to Elon Musk, dude. $54 billion is owed to him private by a company, by Tesla, right? I understand the publicly traded, but a privately negotiated contract that where all the board members everybody agreed, and the fucking milestones that Musk had to reach were ludicrous. In fact, the lefties, I remember seeing the lefties on MSNBC and stuff laughing at him, saying there's no way he'll ever reach these benchmarks and ever get this money, because he wasn't going to take any if he didn't reach them. And he reached them all and then some. And then Delaware's like, nope, you don't get that.
Right.
What the fuck?
But they're fortunate to the extent that they have the money to fight back. And that's the ineptness currently of the charge from the extreme left in government right now. There's no amount of money, for instance, so that people understand what I'm talking about. If you are, say, arrested for theft by deception, and it's just over $1,000, which makes it larceny. So if and you're willing, they come to you, and through your attorney, you let them know, hey, I'll pay that back, and some fines or whatever. But they've decided they want you to go to jail. They'll spend $50 million for you to go to jail over $1,000 because they don't care, because it's not their money. The fact that the federal government has a war chest in the trillions and can print their own money and they still can't make Trump go away just shows you how inept they actually are at it. And by the way, Elon Musk is going to get in front of the Supreme Court eventually, and they're going to slap the shit out of Delaware. And they're going to charge Delaware billions of dollars and fines, and restitution back to Elon Musk, who, and sadly, the middle-class people in Delaware are going to pay the freight.
True story.
Can't win. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. So,
yeah, man.
We're coming up again.
We should wrap it up.
So it was fun. It was a good conversation. I hope everybody learned something. If you don't know who to vote for, don't. That's my advice. Stay away from it. If you do not know what's going on, then you have no business voting at all for any reason. And I'm just going to say this and then I'll end it. If you're under the age of 40, just don't vote because you're an idiot and you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. And we'll see you next week. And I'll pass it to Chad to say his piece.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've been trying to give up voting myself. So I think everybody should give up on voting.
Don't vote.
Just skip it. Nah. Man, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. It almost seems inevitable. Like there's some kind of nasty thing that's going to come down the pike here to try to interrupt the process. And we're just going to hold on and wait and see. So on that, we'll report back and y'all have a good night. Peace out.